Thanks for listening to the Northwest Yearly Meeting podcast. We hope that you find the conversations to be helpful and enlightening as you get to hear from those involved in the Evangelical Friends movement. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss when a new episode comes out. Now, enjoy the episode. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Northwest Yearly Meeting podcast. It is just me, Jacob. Today, I'm going solo. Austin and his wife have just welcomed a new baby into their family, and so at the time of recording this, the baby is just 3 weeks old. And so, if you can remember back or think back to what that is like, if you've had a child yourself, or if not, but they are very busy right now. Sleepless nights, lots of diaper changes, lots of things going on. They have other children as well. And so I reached out to Austin and I touched base with him. And, ultimately I was like, I can do this month solo if that makes it easier for you. And he said, yes, please. And so I'm just doing the podcast solo this month. And hopefully you'll get to hear Austin again in the June episode. But this month we wanted to take, or I guess I should say I wanted to take some time to talk about Friends Summit. Friends Summit is a conference that happens once every 4 years. It's a national gathering of Evangelical Friends Church, youth and young adults, and some mentors that come with them. It is a powerful and exciting event, something that could not be pulled off by any of the yearly meetings on their own. And so these 6 yearly meetings come together and do this. And so I have a few conversations with a few different people that you're going to hear. The first one is going to be from Jesse Penna. Jesse Penna works in Mid-America Yearly Meeting. He works at Berkeley College. He's going to share a little bit about that with you. But he has been a part of planning all of the summits. So Summit happens every 4 years. The first one was in 2010. He has been a part of planning and organizing Summit from the very beginning. And so he's going to give a brief history of Summit, what it is, and why it would be important to get that happening and sending some people from your church to attend this December in 2023. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Jesse. And then after that, I'm going to be talking to Conard Harrison, who is a student at George Fox University. He's from Entiat Friends, and he recently went on a planning trip that we just had back in February to kind of give some insight into this year's summit. And so you'll hear a little bit from him about what that trip was like and what his thoughts are on Summit. He also attended in 2018, and so he's going to be offering perspective from a student who has attended and someone who is young and involved in the Friends Church and what they would like to see happen with Summit. But before you hear those conversations, I would just like to, maybe you've heard about this, maybe you haven't, I wanted to give an announcement. There's a new opportunity happening this summer at yearly meeting sessions, a family camp at annual sessions. And so annual sessions is an important event each summer within Northwest Yearly Meeting, and we want to make that more available to families to attend together. And so Camp Tillicum is offering this new opportunity for families to come and stay at the lodge at Camp Tillicum, and school-age kids will be able to attend a week of camp while the parents are attending annual sessions at the beginning of the week. And then when annual sessions ends on Tuesday evening or Wednesday morning, depending on if you have any meetings or board meetings to happen, you can then continue the rest of that week through Friday, staying at the camp and having a nice relaxing getaway, some family vacation time. And the price structure works out so much that, this will include your meals and lodging and your admission to yearly meeting session, as well as your kids coming to this camp, and they're going to max out the cost at $900. So if you and your spouse want to come and say you have 4 kids and the total price would be over $900, they're going to max you out at $900 so that they can help make this affordable to families to come and have this experience. So if you're interested in this, would you please contact the yearly meeting office, contact Elizabeth Lycon for more information. This is a new thing that we're trying out for annual sessions, and we hope that it's beneficial to families. Now, enjoy this conversation with Jesse Penna, and then following that, a conversation with Conard Harrison.
Sounds good.
So thanks for joining us. I have Jesse Penna here, and I'm going to let Jesse introduce himself because he's not a Northwest Yearly Meeting person, and so some of you might not know who he is. But Jesse Penna, he works at Barclay College, and he also works for Mid America Yearly Meeting. So Jesse, would you introduce yourself really quick?
Yeah, my official name is Jesse Ray Billy Bob Bo Dean Penna, and I work for the Evangelical Friends Church of Mid America Yearly Meeting as the Student Ministries Director, and then I chair the Youth Ministry degree here at Barclay College and live in Havlin, Kansas. Um, yeah, those are the pertinent pieces, I guess. I'm married to Abby and have three kids: Evelyn, Sarah, and Levi.
There you go. And Jesse was a youth pastor at North Ridge Friends Church in Wichita, Kansas, when I was a youth back in the Mid America days. So I
Back in the
remember
day, that's a long time ago.
seeing you back at camps and youth conferences and things like that.
Yeah, many
Um,
many moons ago.
I know that was a long time ago. So I think, um, well, this is going to be the fourth Friends Summit. We've had Friends Summit three other times, and I think you have been a part of the planning for all the other ones. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was still Northridge youth pastor, the first one in 2010, but had a part in helping put together some of that summit.
Okay. So are you the only person to your knowledge that has been a part of planning all of them?
Yeah, I guess so in an official way. I mean, yeah, and Matt, of course, Matt Macy.
Sure. So you're the expert. You're the Friends Summit expert, which is why I wanted to have you on here. So for people who don't know, because I don't know who exactly listens to this, I can see numbers of who listens to it, but I don't know if it's young people, older people. I don't get that information. So for people who don't know, I guess would you just give a quick overview, or maybe not a quick, you can take some time, but what's the elevator pitch of Friends Summit? And how, yeah, I guess what was the origins of Friends Summit? Because I've heard some of this other stories about like how it was formed and stuff, but if you would just give an overview of that.
Yeah, in some ways, the origin, like EFCNA, is a group of the six different yearly meetings, and I guess in '08, '09, or whatever, we started to realize there was not a place for EFCNA, in that case, young adults, a place for them to gather. And we also realized that there wasn't really a time or a place where EFCNA gathered on kind of a regular basis, as far as like as many people from EFCNA as possible. And so there was kind of some considerations of what would it be like to do something all together. And then we also realized that um, among yearly meetings, we had programming for junior high and high school students, but there wasn't really any kind of specific programming for young adults. And so, kind of putting all that together as far as a need to provide a space and a place for young adults to gather, coupled with a chance for EFCNA to kind of almost like a family reunion every 4 years to gather together in one place, but with a specific desire to give young adults a chance to be together in a space where they're kind of exploring calling and wondering about God's will in their life as young adults, to give them 3 days together or so to kind of pray together, worship together, and be together all in the same space with all the friends resources kind of all in one place for the on behalf of the young adults. And so in some ways that was kind of the beginning of Friends Summit as a EOCNA gathering every 4 years. And of course, because of COVID, this next one will be 5 years. But um, the first one, yeah, was in 2010, and then 14, 18, and then this next one will be in 23.
Yeah, nice. So I've shared this before, but I went in 2010 as like the target audience, the attender. I was a young adult in 2010, and then I didn't make it to the 2014 one, and then I came in 2018 as more like the youth pastor, bringing people and kind of more in that mentor role. So And then I helped plan a little bit. I was like a late addition in the 2018 to the planning team, and now I've been helping plan for this one in 2023. So I feel like I've kind of been involved in all the different areas of Summit, as coming as an attender and then coming as the youth pastor, bringing people, and then being planning. But yeah, it is a great event, I think. And I think you've shared this, that it's the only national event that's happening right now, for Evangelical Friends Church. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's like certain groups, like the superintendents get together a couple times a year, and then EFM meets a couple times a year, but there's never really like a full invitation to all the EFCNA churches and resources to all come together in the same place except for Summit. So it's kind of a both a mountaintop experience in what we do in the 3 days, but also in the sense of we're inviting everyone that's a part of EFCNA. So resources, colleges, churches, leaders, etc. It really is the only place where we kind of formally gather as many people from EFCNA as we possibly can.
Hmm. And then I guess I just have one more question for you, really. And then if you have anything else that you'd like to share about Summit, but um, as I mentioned, I don't really know who listens to this, but I guess imagine that there's like an older person listening, maybe someone in like an elder in their church, or someone who's high up, like on the Christian education board or something like that. Someone who maybe is thinking like, I'm not a young adult, I'm not going to be the person going to Summit. But what would you say to someone like that as to what's the importance for them to try to find someone in their church to sponsor or send, even though they themselves may not be the one attending the conference? What would be the benefit to the local church?
Yeah, and some of that's a history answer. Like the first summit really kind of more was a general conference where we didn't have a strong emphasis upon almost kind of more like a leadership development gathering for young adults. But in terms of like yeah, pastors, elders, leaders, adults who are hearing about Summit, I think the real value is in recognizing the need to, in some cases, kind of pass the baton, the leadership baton, the ministry baton to the younger generation. I think there's some of that dynamic going on where we as leaders want to empower the younger people to really step up and begin to serve, maybe in more formal ways or paid ways, tangible ways. And then yeah, for the local church, like Summit really took a shift. The second summit in 2014 of really emphasizing that the conference, the gathering, is secondary. It's the mechanism to help the local church discern ways in which God might be leading them at a local level. So it's the space or place to come together, both adults and young adults, to kind of dream together and have conversation together. But the real sweet spot for Summit is the what happens at the local church in light of Summit. And so for um, yeah, pastors, leaders, chairs of elders, those kinds of things, it really is a how could we, as a local church, what is God calling us to do as a local church, to have a few days to ask that kind of a question and to have the young adults help discern that question with you so that you post summit can begin to maybe implement some things or try some things that you felt like God showed you while you're together at summit. So it really, our hope, our aim is really to empower what's happening on a local level in the French churches. And so the more leaders and adults that we can have in that space together helps when someone goes home to have those conversations.
Well, that's all I have for you, Jesse, unless you have any other things you'd like to share about Summit and get promoting. This is going to come out at the 1st of May. I don't know, so just like a week really, but I don't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, I just will probably reiterate like I think in general, probably in the church in general, but the French church maybe in particular, which is this is what Summit is, a French church gathering, that to really see this as a chance to um, yeah, pass the baton, develop leaders, more of a leadership development, depending on what cultures. That is the other part about Summit that's unique. That like a Northwest Yearly Meetings case, Northwest Yearly Meeting culture is different than Mid America culture, is different than Southwest culture. Is different than Eastern Region culture. So there's also kind of a side advantage to a gathering like this where someone can be exposed to friends in a broader sense, where you can begin to discover more than just your local church or just your yearly meeting, that it kind of opens up some other family members that you may not realize that you had that you can learn from and grow from. And so I think that's also kind of a unique, fun part to Summit, where you can rub shoulders with other people who are a part of your family that you may or may not realize are a part of your family. So
Mm.
I also like to think in terms of this is a family reunion. This isn't every 4 years family reunion, where in a lot of cases you're going to meet some family you didn't know you had, but then your local church family, you get to have a family vacation together where you're going to go spend 4 or 5 days together in the same place. You're going to travel together, spend some time together in the same place, and return together. That I think all that is also kind of a part of the dynamic of what's happening.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, this may not be the case for everybody. This may be a small percentage, but I think about, I went in 2010 and I got to meet some people from Northwest Yearly Meeting. At the time, I was from Mid America and all that kind of stuff. And then later in 2012, I'm moving to Northwest and having a job out there. And I'm recognizing some of those people that were there at Summit and getting to know them. So, yeah, you get to broaden your horizons in a way of the Friends Church.
For sure.
Well, that's all I got. Thanks for joining us, Jesse.
Yep. Been fun to chat.
Yep.
Praise
I'll
be and
see
party on.
I'll see you in a few weeks here when we go to Texas.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
All right. See ya.
See ya.
Hello, Conard.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good. How are you?
Oh, not too bad.
Nice. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, of course.
It's just me. I don't know if I told that to you or not, but usually I have
Okay.
Austin Way. I don't know if you know him. He's the pastor at South Salem
Oh, yeah.
Friends Church. So him and I usually
Okay.
do this together, but they just had a new baby this month. And
Oh,
so,
nice.
yeah, they've been a little busy and preoccupied. So when I texted him the other week and was like, hey, are you wanting to be on this month? And he's like, you should just take it by yourself. I'm a little preoccupied right now. And I was like, I totally get it. So, but yeah, so I just wanted to talk real quick. We're just having a few people on here talking about Friends Summit.
Oh, awesome.
Well, I guess you can introduce yourself first before we get to it, but thanks for joining us.
Yeah. I'm Conard Harrison. I'm a George Fox University right now. I'm wrapping up my senior year. I'm actually in finals week right now, and then graduation's this Saturday, so things are moving pretty quick.
Dang, I actually did know that because I know someone who's going out to graduation.
Oh,
So
nice.
thanks for taking time to join us, even though you have a busy week this week as well.
Yeah, of course.
So I gave a little bit of a back history of Friends Summit already, but you attended in 2018, correct?
I did, yeah, in Denver. Well,
Yeah, it was in Colorado
Colorado
Springs.
Springs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the only one you went to, right?
Yep. Yep.
So will you just share a little bit about what that was like? What were some things that you liked about it? What were some highlights of the conference or the trip?
Yeah.
Yeah, just what was your experience like?
Yeah, one of the coolest things um, about Summit, I think, is seeing youth from other parts of the United States who are also part of the Friends Church. I remember meeting people from Friends University and Berkeley, from different yearly meetings, Rocky Mountain Yearly Meeting, Indiana. It's just such a cool opportunity to meet those kind of people and realize that there's such a community out there, and it's not just us in the Pacific Northwest or them out in Indiana or Rocky Mountain, but we're together. And that was one of the really coolest things that I took away from 2018.
Yeah, I think I've been twice. I went in 2010 as
Okay.
like an attender, and then I went in
Oh,
2018
okay.
more as like the youth pastor bringing kids from our church, but still attending in a way. But yeah, that is cool. I think They kind of share on the planning team and things like that. As far as I know, or as far as they say, this is like the only national gathering for all the yearly meetings for evangelical friends that happens. So I
Oh
guess there
wow.
used to be a national pastors conference. There used to be some things like that, but those don't happen anymore. So this is the only national gathering for all, and I don't know if I could list them all on the spot, but we have Northwest Yearly Meeting, Mid America, Southwest Yearly Meeting,
Mm.
Rocky Mountain, Eastern Region Yearly Meeting, and Alaska Yearly Meeting. So those
Oh
are the
wow.
ones that are kind of involved in planning and creating this. Obviously, some other people attend and it's open to other people to come attend, but those are the groups that are planning this conference. So yeah, it's cool because like obviously here in the Northwest, we do a lot of things together, like yearly meeting and camps
Mm.
and all
Right.
that kind of stuff. But we don't always get to interact with people from Ohio and Texas and Oklahoma and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the like workshops or speakers or sessions that you took part in?
I remember one of the kind of one of the general themes. It might have spanned a couple different speakers, um, but one of the general themes I remember being is "Come as you are," and they talked about a lot about how life in today's world is different than 50 years ago. And you have your social media life, you have maybe a job going on, maybe you're at college, maybe you're still in high school, and so much going on. And church life shouldn't be separate, but church life and your relationship with Christ should be involved through all of that. And that was super awesome. And I remember on the closing night, they had people come up with signs. And on one side, it was like, before Summit, I thought this and this about myself. I was doing things that I know I shouldn't have been doing, but now, and they'd flip over their card. I feel this. I feel God's love. I feel his patience. I feel his redemptive love. And so it was so cool to see those individual stories from what the speaker talked about working in the individual lives.
Yeah, I remember that as well. The sign thing that was cool to see. I
Yeah,
think I even have a picture of that somewhere. So I think you told me that you went with Newberg, or
I
you
did.
traveled with
Yeah.
Newberg, because you're from Entiat, right? Like that's your
Yep.
home
Correct. And yeah,
church.
friends.
So did anyone
Yeah.
else from Entiat Friends go, or was it just you and you joined up with a crew from Newberg?
Yeah. Well, my brother, Joseph Harrison, was actually a student down here at George Fox, but we're both members at Entiat Friends. So we both hailed from Entiat, but he was down here starting with the Newberg group. And then I met them in Portland, and we went over as a group together, and turned out to be a really good group.
Nice. So my question, I guess, coming from that, and I might put you on the spot here a little bit, but like, I don't know if you're planning to attend this one or not, but whether you are or not, why would you say, like, if someone's listening to this and so Summit is mainly geared and targeted towards like 16 to 25-year-olds. Obviously,
Hmm.
any older people can come. They kind of encourage that mentors would come with the young adults, but it's really geared toward that age. And
Hmm.
so if someone's listening to this right now and they are like,
Yeah.
an older person, they're 50 years old, 60 years old, they're an elder at their church or
Mm.
whatever, maybe they're thinking, well, I'm not going to go to Friend Summit, so what's the big deal? But what would you say to someone like that is the importance of like really wanting to find somebody at their church to encourage to go to this conference?
Yeah, I think Summit provides such a unique opportunity to make such large strides in your life. I think it's different than just attending Sunday services or Wednesday night Bible studies. It's a place where your life can change, where meaningful conversations can happen. And I really think for, like you said, 18-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 60-year-olds, that can happen. And it's such a cool thing to see a space set aside for that to happen. For the young people, you can imagine summer camp, or young adults. Maybe you haven't gone to summer camp in a couple of years, or maybe you're 60 and you went to summer camp like 50 years ago, and you remember that feeling of having such a purposeful time between you and God. And I think that is replicated at Friend Summit, maybe even magnified. So it is really such a great opportunity opportunity to not only do it yourself, but do it with those around you. Maybe a mentor-mentee situation can turn out really great.
Yeah, I think it would be beneficial. I know we had a fairly large group from Northwest Yearly Meeting attend last summit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know off the top of my head like where all the churches were from. I know we had a good
Mm-hmm.
turnout from Meridian and even Southern Idaho in general. I know there was people from Caldwell Friends and Star Friends
Mm-hmm.
and maybe Greenleaf. And then, obviously you guys came from Entiat and you came with some people from Newburgh. I know there were some Sherwood
Mm-hmm.
people there, but I just always think like how impactful that could potentially be for our yearly meeting if every single church,
Mm-hmm.
so I think there's like 41, 42 something churches in Northwest Yearly Meeting, if every single one just had one youth or young adult attend and
Mm-hmm.
one mentor, that's like 80 plus people, 80, 85, once you count the youth and the
Yeah.
mentors. And then to have them go to this conference and then all come back to their individual churches,
Mm-hmm.
like what kind of impact could that have on each local church in Northwest Yearly Meeting and then the yearly meeting
Right.
as a whole? That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I have one more question for you. So
Oh,
Conard
awesome.
was kind of in a unique situation too, where just recently, this past February,
Mm.
the planning team for Friends Summit, which is comprised of some people from all those yearly meetings that I listed before, we get together. I'm on the planning team for people who are listening. So we get together every month via Zoom, but like every 3 or 4 months, we try to get together in person just to have some more intensive planning time. So we were all together in Southern California this past February. And on this trip in particular, we were each tasked to bring 1 or 2 young adults from our yearly meeting with us. And so I reached out to Conard, and Conard actually
Mm-hmm.
came as the Northwest Yearly Meeting young adult representative on this trip to Southern California. And before anyone is too jealous of us, it rained like the entire time that we were there.
It
So we
did.
didn't get to enjoy any nice weather or go to the beach or do anything like that. We really felt like we were in Oregon the whole time.
Yeah.
I did, at least. But that was really cool. We got to be there. So there was young adults from Ohio and Kansas and California.
Mm-hmm.
The only yearly meeting that wasn't physically represented during those meetings was Alaska yearly meeting.
Mm.
So you got to come on that trip and meet some other young adults
Yeah.
and be a part of that. And you got to provide some insight on planning. So you got to come on this trip, provide some insight on some of the topics that we might want to
Mm-hmm.
talk about, and just look forward to this next conference. So my question would just be, how was that? Obviously that's a little different side than just going to the conference itself, getting to be a part of these
Yeah.
planning meetings. Like, how was that experience for you? What were some takeaways from that moment? And I guess what about that maybe gets you excited for this Summit 2023 conference?
Yeah. Although the rain was a disappointment, that was really my only disappointment about the trip. Um, it was so great to connect with youth and young adults and leaders on the planning committee from all around the United States in the Friends Church. Um, it was a reminder that, like I said before, we're in a community, and kind of brought back that summer camp feel. We were around for, let's see, I got in Friday and left Sunday evening. So it was a quick trip, a quick turnaround, but we shared so much. There was so much vulnerability. Um, there was so much hope and faith that Summit will be something that God can take and use to build his kingdom. Um, so my biggest takeaway was how the youth and the young adults that were there wanted to emphasize how we could let youth at Summit be vulnerable in safe spaces and to grow in those tough questions or those tough times that they're going through, and how they can share that and express that, and how they can use that to grow at Summit.
Awesome. Well, I appreciated that
And an out
I
burger
know it was a big
included.
sacrifice to take a trip down to California. But yeah,
Mm,
we did have fun despite the rain, like you said, In-N-Out
yeah.
Burger and other stuff.
Yeah.
Hey. Well, thank you, Connor, for joining us. I don't know if you have any last thoughts about Summit 2023 or planning and inviting people, but yeah, I just
Yeah.
think for people who are listening, whether you are of the age group that you can attend and this is for you, quote unquote, or if you're an
Hmm.
older person and you're like, I'm not going to go to Summit myself, but I'm really, you know, I'm feeling passionate about getting someone from our church to go. You can
Mm.
find more information at Friends Summit. I think it's .org. I should double check that, but friendssummit.org. There's going to be info there coming out soon. Conard is walking and living testimony of someone going to the conference and coming back and being involved. Like I know you were you the youth intern recently at Northwest Yearly
I
Meeting?
was. Yes.
Yeah. So
Actually just finishing up.
there you go. So going to Summit, coming back, being involved in Northwest Yearly Meeting.
Hmm.
All right. Well, thanks
Yeah,
for joining us, Conard.
of course.
And good luck at
Hopefully we'll
graduation.
see people at, oh, thank you. And then hopefully we'll see people at Summit 2023.
Yes. Yep. We will see you all there.
Sounds
All
good.
right. Thanks, Conard.
Of course. See you, Jacob.
All right. I hope you enjoyed those conversations as you begin to talk and with some leadership and think about Friends Summit. I hope that your church, if you're listening to this, whether you're a student, a pastor, an elder, just a lay person, I pray that you would have some conversations with people at your church and find one or two youth or young adults that you would want to send to this conference in December and a mentor to go with them. Before we wrap up, I did want to just give one more little announcement and blurb. If you remember our podcast from last month, which was with Ashley Reed, she talked about the intersection of art and Christianity, and we had a good conversation with her. Her and her husband work at Twin Rocks Friends Camp. And so after that came out and after we were done, she asked if we would read this on the next podcast. So I'm going to read this for Ashley. And if you have any questions after this, you can contact her. It says Twin Rocks Friends Camp is hiring interns, summer staff, and servant leadership program participants. If you are a sophomore, junior, or senior in high school, you are eligible for the 5-week servant leadership program. If you are in college or just out of college, you are eligible for summer staff and internship opportunities. All 3 programs work closely with the Twin Rocks staff, sharing Christ-centered community and serving guest groups throughout the summer. If you are interested in growing your faith, gaining hands-on camp ministry experience, and spending a summer at the beautiful Oregon coast, please visit twinrocks.org and turn in your application. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the intern program director, Ashley Reed, who was on last month's podcast at program@twinrocks.org. So if you have questions about that, you can reach out to Ashley Reed at that email address there. She would love to contact you about any of those opportunities. And with that, this is the May episode, and you'll be hearing from us again, and hopefully Austin in June. Goodbye. Once again, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to share it with others. Please rate and review the podcast so others can find it. Contact the office of Northwest Yearly Meeting if you would like to be